From Acres USA, you are listening to the Acres USA podcast, a conversational podcast where we'll explore sustainable farming, regenerative practices, and the latest innovations in eco-agriculture with some of your favorite farmers and ranchers. I'm your host, Taylor Henry, the owner and CEO of Acres USA. Welcome to the Acres USA podcast. All right, we're joined with Sean and Beth Dougherty. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you. We carry Sean and Beth's first book in our bookstore, and then they have a second book coming out, but we're going to talk a lot about cattle today and homesteading, and I'm just thrilled to talk to you guys. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for joining me.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to put this is you guys have been doing this, a while, and you've had a lot of success, and you guys have traveled all over the place. How did you guys, in the simplest terms, get to where you are today?
I think one of the best things that we did is we bought a piece of junk land, a house that needed a lot of work, and but we're determined that we wanted to farm the way that our grandfathers farmed.
Or great grandfathers.
That's right. Before there were feed stores.
Did you grow up?
Did
you grow up farming?
I was a weekend farmer, so every weekend we'd go out to the farm, which was a quarter of a mile down the road where my dad actually grew up in Oklahoma, in Dust Bowl, Oklahoma, and he bought a place, and we would go out every weekend, and we would work out there on the farm. But I really wanted to live on the farm rather than, we lived in Oklahoma City, so it was a 45-minute drive. Beth's story is a little different.
Both of our grandfathers were dry farmers in the Southwest. And when I was a kid, that's what I wanted to do. And my elders all said, you can't do it anymore. Which at the time, little kid, it sounded like they were saying like cows don't give milk anymore, or, grass doesn't grow. And I thought, well, that's your world, but in my world, I'm going to pretend that it does work, and I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And when we married, we knew that was our goal. And wherever we lived, that was what we were working toward.
Did a lot from, living in the city and just dabbling, experimenting.
We spent every summer for the first 10 years of our marriage on Sean's dad's ranch in western Oklahoma. That was where we worked. Sean went into teaching purely so that he could have his summers off and we could farm.
And finally, we found a farm, and it was something we thought, well, we'll flip, and then we'll get to a real farm. And it was steep, not a flat place. We say that there was one flat place the size of a swimming pool, and that's it. Everything else was very steep and trees. And but it was a great place for us to learn that every piece of land has the potential to be a farm. Mm-hmm. And we just have to believe in it. And the more we did this, the more successes we had, so that we now raise about 90 to 95% of what we eat and what our animals eat. So we don't go to the feed store, we don't go to the grocery store, and we eat really, really well.
I think one of the things that happens for people who have to buy a piece of wasteland, a piece of damaged land, one of the things it does that's really valuable is even if you grew up on a farm these days, you have usually at least a limited and very likely a wrong idea about what farming is. And you don't know that. So the beginner buys a piece of land and he's sort of just picturing Farmer Brown's, a cow here, a pig there, kind of, it's pretty and neat and has a white picket fence. And if you grew up, as we did, with beef cattle in your background, you're picturing barbed wire and big pastures, centralized water. And one of the advantages of buying junk land, and especially topographically really varied land like a holler in Appalachia, is that in working with it, you realize that you didn't know what your vision had been too limited.
Right.
And so we were in a position, partly because we just didn't have very much money. We have 8 children. We didn't have them all at the time. But we were in a position to go slowly. And because our goal was to get this land to provide the food we needed and the feed our animals needed, we didn't get distracted by, at least not for very long at any given time, by the attempts to make money at it. So we could focus on, what does this piece of land offer us? What can I do with this funky little rocky south-facing slope that's not flat enough to graze? Well, I can inset fruit trees into that rocky slope, and it'll get more sunlight and we'll get some fruit off of it. And it totally, completely rebuilt our idea of what farming is from the ground up. And we were just fortunate that at the same time, we bought this farm in 96. At the same time, there were brilliant people out there who were steps ahead of us, who were writing with clarity about ecosystem management for ecosystem services and people food. And so we were able to, pick up. It's funny, you look back on the books you read and you think, well, there was this phrase here and this one half page over here that were the real catalysts for the changes that we made that let us start recognizing how big the potential was for this, junky little east-west holler in Appalachia, and what we could do with it.
What were some of the books that stick out in your head that really changed the way you thought?
Well, I think there were books, but there were authors. Wendell Berry certainly was an author, not necessarily telling us how to do it, but encouraging us to believe that that staying in a place, that a place can be a home, that that community is really important in terms of good farming. And then Joel Salatin.
On a practical level, I would go straight to 3. And I can't even remember reading it now. I just know that when we read Joel Salatin's Salad Bar Beef, it gave the piece that we took away was, you can do this anywhere, it's going to work, and you don't need experience because you're going to gain your experience as you go along. So just the conviction that grass grazed properly will grow in better every time, and you'll get, and healthy animal ruminants can live on nothing else. So that was good. So Joel, that Alan Savory, been viewed by everybody on the planet, TED Talk that starts out being about global warming, but it's really about holistic grazing. And then for us, Elliot Coleman was really significant in helping us to think about soil fertility in tillage in a different way, maximizing, minimal tillage. I don't mean minimal use of tillage equipment. I mean minimal arable land and maximum use of that land for the longest possible season. And those things, we could go back and put our fingers on the moments that those things raised our food production, the productivity of the ecosystem as a whole, to a new level.
Do you want to break down, what your operation looks like now? Like, what does a daily routine look like for you guys, just so people can get an idea of what your, the different enterprises that you have?
So we have now 4 pigs, and that's usually about what we do, about 4 pigs. We often have sheep. We don't have any right now, just because we've moved some of the cows, the cows that have just.
It's a grass and topography thing, really.
Right.
We use sheep where we need sheep to reclaim steep slopes that won't yet carry an 850 pound SAU, So we use sheep to grow grass, and then we'll use cows to get what we want.
And some of those very steep pastures have now become pastures that we can run the cattle on. So we are a dairy-based system. So we're milking 4 right now. Again, we're a small operation that is interested in feeding our family.
I like
and
the
our
term.
local community.
I like your term human scale. We're human scale.
That's right. And we are not particularly interested in selling. We are we love the idea of being outside of the money system, not needing the money system as much as possible. We know that there are going to be some
We
needs
picture
that we have.
regenerative ag as this spectrum, and at one end, there are guys like Joel and Daniel Salatin who are regenerating big numbers of acres to help feed all those people who are dependent upon commercial ag. So they are
providing a better system.
They're an alternative, right? Commercial
right.
ag. And at the other end of that same spectrum, it's the spectrum of people who eat. There are people who want to buy their food, and at the other end, we can take people off the list of people who need to be fed, because a few, a single person, a couple, a family on a small acreage can build all their food, all their animal feed, put rebuild soil there, right, and provide all the fertility for it in a small area, and take people off the commercial food system. And those are two ways we need to begin to address the food problem that our country has right now.
And our goal really is, we would love to have a million little farms just like ours all over the country, and these people providing for themselves. It would transform our country if we had all of these small. So that's what we are trying to teach, not how to make so much that you can sell and then make money from it. I mean, we certainly can make money from it, but not necessarily support yourself completely financially, but to provide your needs, your food needs, your heat needs, your from the farm. We call it feeding the farm from the farm.
And you asked what our what our operation looked like. We manage 35 acres of grass. We run. I like to tell people, picture 8 brood cows, their yearlings, their calves, and a bull. That's 25 animals. The number, you know how a herd varies, so the number circles around 25. We manage them entirely on grass year round. There's a little bought-in hay for security, but it isn't a significant part of what the animals are eating.
There's no grain whatsoever.
Right, it's a grain-free system. And we've been doing this we've been managing grazing animals on this land since 1996 when we bought it. We've been managing cows since about 98 was our first cow. And we've been practicing intentional rotational grazing since about 2009, 2010. Before that, it was unintentional. It was still rotational because we had to move the animals where the food was. But we didn't understand the possibilities of pulsed grazing until later on. And we milk.
Well, those are really impressive numbers, saying you have 25 animals on 35 acres of not the best quality ground.
No doubt noticed, and I will point out that since they're not all the same age, that if you worked it out in pounds of animal, it would work out to something closer to 18 animals on that 35 acres. So about a 2 acres per animal ratio, but that does include the wintertime. That's the whole year round. So it's not too.
Yeah,
it's good for as bad as the land too, because both of our farms were really damaged when we got them. The rental farm, the farm up the road, had been a hog operation, like a dirt hog operation, and all the topsoil left. It was rooted up, it was washed away. And when we went onto that farm and took soil samples, forget the test results. There was about a half an inch maybe of organic matter, and then just yellow, slick potter's clay subsoil. And in the time we've been up there recently, we had to take some dirt off. We had to lay a sidewalk, and they used a box blade on the tractor to take that dirt off, and it went down 5 or 6 inches into beautiful loamy soil. We didn't get to the bottom of it. We never hit the subsoil, but we have at least 5 or 6 inches of soil that we have built up there now. So we milk those cows for the most part. We'll milk them. Sometimes, usually what we'll do is either let all the mamas raise their babies, or we'll foster calves onto nurse cows, and we'll milk some, and the cows will feed the other cows will feed calves. And then we use that milk not only to feed our family and produce cheese and butter and etc., but to raise hogs and chickens and dogs and cats, and everything on the farm eats milk. And a lot of why we can manage all our animals without any kind of purchased calories. There's a little bit of wheat bought in for our extra chickens, but other than that, no purchased calories. And that's because the cows will turn grass into proteins, fats, and sugars. And that's the part of a pig's or a chicken's diet that's hard to achieve with just crops you grow in the ground, right? We raise mangels, which is a fodder beet. It's like a sugar beet, only bigger. We raise sorghum, sunflowers, corn, certain kinds of winter squash that feed the pigs and the chickens. But where pig and chicken diets get dicey are in the proteins and fats area. You want about 16% protein for a chicken to lay eggs. You want something similar. Plus, you need to make sure a pig is getting lysine. So you need to be able to boost their diet in those areas. And surplus milk does that beautifully. In fact, if you look at the history of farming, you realize, skim milk, buttermilk, whey, those were the standard protein feeds for non-ruminant animals on a farm.
Do you mill the grain with it, or are you grazing the hogs through that?
So the hogs
like
the hogs get very little of the grain. The hogs are living on mostly scraps and milk. Think about if you keep a garden, if your listeners are keeping gardens, think about how high the compost pile gets piled with weeds, stems, seeds, cores, rinds, peels, overripe, etc. That's all going through the pig pen. In fact, if you think about this, the sort of Rodale, Albert Howard style compost pile, those are being built because I'm going to say because they didn't have pigs, right? The compost pile that we build, layer, turn quickly is almost a substitute for pigs. Not, I know, if you're trying to produce compost very quickly for a commercial operation, then in fact pigs would not speed that up. But for the homestead, any nutrient that didn't start out life as a pig is pig food. You can feed a pig anything. So when you can take spare nutrients, and we're talking about anything from like fruit tree ramiel, small scale, small diameter fruit tree trimmings, to anything that came out of the garden, to mowed, raked forage, soilage, to anything that comes out of the house or the cow, to all the bedding from all the animals except for pigs. Every bit of that is nutrients that can go through a pig pen. 10% of it becomes pig, pork, bacon and ham, and the other 90% begins the process of breaking down so that it can get put back on the garden or on the pasture. I don't even know where I started that. Sean says if you push a button, I'll start talking on a topic, and sometimes I'll forget where I'm supposed to be going. Oh, you asked about grazing the pigs. So because our subsoil is clay, we don't often put the pigs directly on their food source. We will take them quickly over something like a bed of Jerusalem artichokes, which are a pain for us to harvest, and the pigs enjoy harvesting. So we'll take them over that quickly, and those are very short timed grazing periods. We might take them over like the potato patch.
But pigs are kept in a closed pen so that...
Right, we pen our pigs so that we can, one, since we're delivering a lot of nutrients to them, it's easiest if they are in a centralized spot. But two, they are our one source for captured manure. on the farm. Everything else is
Yeah.
in some way pastured. And so because we can capture soil bedding in the pig pen, we have a good source for compost for the arable land.
It's really interesting. I guess I'd never really thought of being able to supplement them as much with the milk as you are, but that's really intriguing.
So John Seymour, and I'm trying to think of what my source is. It's always nice to be able to quote somebody. 1 gallon, some people would say 3 quarts of milk a day provides a pig with its high quality proteins, including lysine, daily from weaning weight to slaughter weight. That's because its protein percentage needs goes down as it gets bigger. So a standard number would have been if you can send, we'll say 5 gallons of skim milk or buttermilk down to the pig pen a week, you don't have to ask yourself, is that pig getting its adequate proteins and fats? Now, that's not all its calories, but it was a well-known fact that whatever waste the farm produced, as long as some of that was waste dairy, you could raise out and fatten a hog.
Yeah. Yeah, they're amazing animals in their own right. So how do you then prepare the chicken feed?
It depends on which chickens we're feeding, but we keep several flocks because our primary use for chickens is actually as landscape alteration. You know, they serve cleanup jobs on the farm. So let's pick out of a hat. We'll pick a group. There's a flock of chickens that free ranges the farm spring, summer, fall, and in winter is enclosed in our 10th acre home fresh vegetable garden or home vegetable garden, not where we grow pig and chicken feed, but where we grow people food. And when they're they spend that time in the winter making that area weed free. Around here, it would be a solid mat of chickweed by spring, and the chickens, by being in there, make sure that we have bare soil to move on to when we garden. And they get some household scraps selectively because we're actually sending them the highest protein scraps because we want them to lay some in the winter. They get a lot of greens from our high tunnel in the wintertime, and they eat that. And then we'll give them a certain amount of they get sunflower seeds and sorghum that we raise and save for winter feed. They get mango beets. Mango beets will get to be 10, 15, 20 pounds big. So we'll just drop one in. They'll tear that up. And that's fiber and energy, a lot of minerals, not much protein. They'll get some fermented wheat. That's our one purchased animal feed. And they'll get milk or butchering scraps.
Right. Butchering scraps are really good. Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Hey everybody, hope your spring and summer is going well for you. We have 2 summer events that we want to make sure that we talk about. Number 1, June 21st in Gaston, Indiana at Jason Mock's farm. John Kempf, Gary Zimmer, Jason Mock will be speaking at our first annual Farm Weird on Farm event. It is June 21st, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Half the day will be presentations, and then the other half the day we'll get out in the field and actually see a live harvest, see some of Jason's relay cropping, in-crop grazing, perennial systems. Jason's got a really incredible farm, and we're excited to be out there. The other event is July 11th, and is our second annual Viroqua on Farm event. It'll be in Viroqua, Wisconsin, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our speakers for that are Will Winter, Steve Campbell, Gary Zimmer, and Brian Dougherty from Understanding Ag. And this one we will talk about livestock, regenerative grazing techniques, holistic animal health, and grazing economics. Head to the description. We'll have links for both events in there, and we hope to see you at one of these events this summer. So it does. I mean, and then you hold back the seed of the sorghum and corn and different plants that you're growing year after year, and you never have to buy the seed either.
That's right. Unless we're dumb and feed out of that bit. I was trying to think. I know we had to buy. Oh, we bought buckwheat this year. So.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think when I think of the group of people, similar to you, like I'm a real estate agent as well, so I've sold a lot of farms to people that want to just raise food for their family.
Mm-hmm.
And the main areas that we usually head down are, because I usually will help these people, get up and going after the purchase of the property. But I see a lot of disappointment because, number one, I think people don't realize that there actually is a lot of work that goes into this. And it does look like sunshine and rainbows, and I think it is. Like you do get an amazing thing back from just working with the land, but it's difficult for people to wrap their mind around the amount of work it actually does take.
You mean I'm going to do this every day?
Yeah. And or they get caught up in like certain, maybe they're even doing unnecessary work because they want to make sure there's no weeds, or they came from a city where their lawn was nice and manicured.
We helped out some people.
I mean, so that's
who cleaned their chicken house to the floor every day. Don't know why.
Oh wow. So that's one area, and then I think people get discouraged, and then they maybe they kind of realize it's not for them. The other area is, which I then think adds more pressure to you as well, is they get excited because when you get into the homesteading world, you can spend thousands of dollars on a chicken coop that houses like 4 chickens. Right. And if you keep going down that like excited new technology, new shiny object syndrome, all of a sudden you have the most expensive groceries you could possibly ever have. Right. So it is a mindset thing, and it's common. Do you think it's common? Do you see it often?
It's
like
absolutely common. So when we do a farm consult, we go to a place and they start at the end of a day. They say, "You've already saved us $20,000 or $30,000."
Yeah,
there was so much stuff that we thought we needed to buy. What our mindset is, every dollar that I spend on the farm is a dollar I have to go out and find somewhere. But what if I, instead of spending that dollar on food or any of those things, said, is it possible for the farm to have provided that? And that's what our goal has been, is the farm needs to provide it. And we're not going to add an animal until we already have the food.
Till there's an ecosystemic niche for that animal, right?
And that's why we would always start with the ruminant, because there's going to be grass or there's going to be some sort of something on the pasture. So that animal is the first animal that you get because it's already got food. Then if you can either do with your ruminant a one-time harvest, which is great, meat, or you can do a twice daily harvest of the best food that there is that feeds every other animal on the farm. And now I can add the other animals because I have the food for them. And then one of the most important things that people have to understand, especially the homesteaders, is how to balance. So that means that I don't have 15 cows because I want 15 cows. I have 15 cows because I have that, or probably not 15 cows. I have 5 cows because that's how much food my farm provides.
How much cow food, yeah.
Cow food is going to provide. That's what I'm balancing. And that's going to change a lot as you do this better and better. Mm-hmm. You find that your pastures get better. You get more fertility. Now I have more grass. Now I actually have to add animals because I've got the food for them. And if I don't take care of it, and this is why we strongly encourage people to start with 20 acres, not 160 acres. Because if you have 160 acres, you need to take care of 160 acres. And people are overwhelmed with 160 acres.
What we're really trying to help people see is that whatever their piece of ground looks like, unless it's a parking lot, in which case they shouldn't have bought it, but otherwise, whatever their piece of ground looks like, it's a working ecosystem. Right. It's growing stuff. There's a lot of life there. It might be all bug, rodent, insect, and plant life. It might not look beautiful to them, but it's a working ecosystem. And the way you can tell that is it doesn't change a whole lot from year to year. Like if it's an abandoned pasture, it's an abandoned pasture and it grows grass and weeds and a lot of wildlife. Or if it's a woodland, it's been a woodland for a long time. So it's a working ecosystem. It collects sunlight, converts, uses it as the power source to turn carbon dioxide and water into plant material. That plant material feeds everything in the ecosystem, and you have birth, death, decay, regeneration happening all the time. Those are ecosystemic services that the homesteader can put to work on his or her behalf, but he or she has to see them and then not disrupt them by his actions. If you bring in more animals than you have grass to feed, you're going to disrupt that system by taking it down to dirt. Now we're going to see erosion. We're going to see various plant species that die out because they're overgrazed. If we can just slow that down and make our changes to the ecosystem changes that boost the ecosystemic services instead of erasing them, then we can get it working for us. And then you can build a farm pretty fast and piece by piece, sort of from the bottom up, so that in the end you have something that doesn't cost money, it saves money, it probably makes a little money, and it is more resilient than it was before you got there.
And that wild ecosystem will provide some human food, rabbits, deer,
mushrooms, berries,
etc. But what we find is it's not enough. We want more food.
That's right.
So if we want to then get more human food, then we need to be careful about how we move in that direction. And we always suggest nudging to begin with, as opposed to bulldozing. So you don't just say, I come in and I'm going to wipe it out and I'm going to now put in the commercial farm. But I kind of say, okay, well, if I bring a ruminant in, I'm going to see what that ruminant does. Does it eat the forage, the pasture that's here? And if it doesn't, then maybe I have the wrong ruminant. So if it's bark, if it's woody, you're going to bring in a goat. If it's more grass, you're going to bring in a cow. And then you're going to start working towards providing more and more of the food that we as humans want. Milk,
meat,
gardens,
steak,
right?
Pork chops.
Right.
Yeah. So what is like your family dynamics as far as like how many people are you feeding from the stuff that comes off your land? Is like all 8 kids on the milk list?
Well, they're not with us.
They're not all here.
Yeah. So a lot of them are now married and off, but we do have local. So some of them live close. But yes, we eat a lot of meat. We eat a lot of potatoes.
A whole lot of dairy.
Every garden should grow the staple, the thing that you're going to get plenty of meat.
Your primary
you're
carb.
doing this well. But yeah, you need. So ours is potatoes. A lot of people, it's wheat. But the problem with wheat and turning it into bread is that it takes a lot of.
There are a lot of steps to growing, harvesting, processing wheat and turning it into bread. Whereas potatoes,
super easy.
Right. Potatoes are an easy carb. So that's a piece of how we feed the family. I think, so we have 8 children. There was a time when this farm fed all 10 of us, plus a fair amount of food overflowing to the community around us as well. Today, 5 of the kids live at home. Two more have families and live nearby. Everybody in the family, all the married kids, either have their own small farm or their in-laws have a small farm, which they participate in. There's one exception because one of the boys is actually in the military and he's overseas. But other than that, so this farm hasn't had to feed all of us all that time because as they grow up, they go have their own farms. But it's done a good job of feeding all of us. It does involve everybody, but not, when people look at the workload for a farm like this, I think it's safe to say, and you can probably, you probably know this from your own experience, that the time it takes to maintain this place is actually not more than people in a city culture spend on driving places to get their stuff, maintaining their stuff, going to the gym to get the exercise they didn't get because they weren't grazing animals and keeping a garden. It does feel.
Well, it's like how important is the systems? Because I would agree, like I'm able to do all kinds of different things while still farming, but it was, I would say the first 2 years I was doing this, I spent probably 3 to 4 times more time developing the system, because the system would break, or something would be off, or fencing, the fence should have been over there because they got too tight through here and they bumped into it, or so it took a while to get the systems down. But once the systems are down, if you're very system oriented, you can, it definitely is like it doesn't need to be that serious of a full time. Hey there, did you attend our EcoAg conference this year in Madison, Wisconsin? Well, if you didn't, or if you did, we've got the recordings now available. Get on-demand access to every session with the EcoAg recordings. Learn directly from the pioneers of soil health, livestock integration, and profitable regenerative systems, all at your own pace. Speakers include Gabe Brown, Alan Williams, John Kemp, Joel Salatin, and a lot more. We also have additional products that include the full-day workshops done by Matt Powers, John Kemp, Nigel Palmer, Jordan Green, Mark Shepard, and Austin Unruh. These workshops are in depth and will help you dig deep on the presenters' topics. Grab your recordings now at conference.eco-ag.com/24 recordings, or find the link in the notes. Because the best investment you can make is in your own knowledge. Now back to the show. Commitment.
We answer lots of emails. People email us, and especially on the homesteading front. And we got an email recently that said, "How many hours does it take to be a homesteader?" and how many hours a day? And my response is, well, I think it kind of depends on how much of your food and heat, and how much are you trying to provide from the homestead. We try and provide an awful lot from the homestead. We want the farm, because everything that I don't have to buy in means we don't have to spend that time off farm. So we're very happy trying to provide as much as we can from the farm. And the other thing is that we like it. So someone might say, well, how many hours a day does it take to raise children? Well, I don't know. That's what you do. It takes all your time. So I think that, how many hours do we homestead? We all the time that we can, because we like doing it.
But it's not.
So we're constantly improving things. We're constantly improving gardens. We have luxuries. We have peacocks. We have flowers. We have things that don't provide our needs, except that they're beautiful. Yes, we like them.
It makes me think of the economist Ivan Illich, who comes to mind, but I know lots of other people have done it, who sit down and work out how much of the average American's work time is spent maintaining his car. And they can easily come up with 25% of what you do is there to maintain your car, just by, doing the math. Following each rabbit trail. Why am I doing this thing? Oh, well, it does come back to somehow or other I'm maintaining a car. And why am I maintaining a car? Well, most people say so they can get to work. So this is a snake chasing its own tail, right? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do I keep the car so that I can get to work, or do I work so I can maintain the car? With homesteading, it's good. It's beautiful. It's self-sustaining. If we took our hands away, the ecosystem would morph, because some of these species, like chickens, don't survive very well without people's help. But we'd have this beautiful piece of fertile ground that would go on growing things. The benefits, you can't ever track any of them down to its end because there are so many of them. So yes, it's how we live. And I would say, for example, Sean spends the better part of an hour in the morning driving up to the rental farm, milking a couple of cows, driving home, straining the milk, cleaning the buckets, getting back upstairs, and getting his day started. In the afternoon, a couple of us, usually I and my daughter Anna, drive back up to the rental farm, move the dry cows fence, move the lactating cows fence, milk the lactating cows, feed the chickens up there, drive home, we process the milk. And that's another hour and a half to 2 hours. Some of that's transport time. A lot of it is not just producing food for us because we keep a breeding herd. We're working toward an ideal Appalachian dairy cow. We like to think of her as a Buckeye because that's the Ohio state tree. And these animals look like Buckeyes. They're dark. They're black with a brown saddle. And we want sure-footed, compact, on the smaller size, carries good weight, makes decent beef, cow that produces good milk on grass year round. So that's not part of a homesteader wouldn't have to have that work involved in what he or she was doing. That's a second option.
Right.
I mean, one of the things that is just how much time we spend just on food. I mean, if you are not buying processed food and you are constantly, you're always either cooking or cleaning dishes or
do you remember when we used to feel bad about it? Yeah. We'd like look at each other. This is many years ago, and we'd say, is it really okay that we spend this much of our lives on food? Only
everybody used to.
Right. And take a snapshot of the last 100 years of the American food system. And what we've got is more and more and more and more convenience, ultra-processed food, and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker Americans who are spending more and more and more of their energy trying to do something about the fact that they're sick. Energy and health, trying to do something about the fact that they're sick. We're really all obsessed with food. We're just being very direct and upfront about it. We're obsessed with eating good food 3 times a day that we grew in beautiful soil.
Yeah. What was it like, or what advantages do you think you got out of raising, your 8 kids in this environment?
How long have you got?
Yeah, this is. We think it is the best place to raise kids. We homeschooled. We homestead schooled is what we like to talk about now. It's not just recreating school in the home. We are working as a family to do the things that we do. And instead of hiring somebody in, we always said, we're going to do that. So when we added an addition onto the house, we built it ourselves. This all came to fruition. You don't have this opportunity very often, but our house burned down, fortunately, 2 years ago. And our children all have been a part of the rebuilding. So we have an architect, we have a general contractor, an electrician, a plumber, a mason, timber framers, all that. And so over the last 2 years, they have been building, and we've just moved in on Ash Wednesday this year into this absolutely gorgeous house.
We're not in it. We're sitting in our B&B, which is on another part of the farm.
Right, because the internet's better over here. Right. But it's that. Again, you just don't, you think, I think that this is right to raise my kids this way, to teach them these skills. We butcher all of our own food. All of our own animals. All of those skills are skills that the kids started with on the farm. And then each of them found the thing that they did really well. And it really came home.
The danger of asking us about our children is that we sound so proud, and we're just the ordinary family doing ordinary things in some ways. But you ask, what are the advantages? Well, they're all really healthy. They all grew really well.
very happily
silly,
married.
silly things like the two of us we sit here in our glasses. We're both nearsighted. Genetically speaking, we should have had nearsighted children. We have none of our children wears glasses. How's that? Like, there's even a cost benefit there. Um, it's made a huge difference. One of the differences, let's just pick one, I mean, like, food is great and their skills are great, but I think one difference that it made for us is that we had a job that we all needed to do together. The results of that job were very evident every day because we sat down and ate them 3 times a day. And because if anybody made a mistake, it was visible pretty quickly. You know, if you make the mistake balancing the meat bird's bucket on a stump and putting the calves in the same pasture, the calves are going to come knock that bucket over, and your meat birds are going to die of heat stroke because you just didn't quite think the thing through enough. Those that we were all under the same sort of learning curve, that we were all obviously, including mom and dad, were under rules that we didn't make up. We weren't really in charge. We were there to serve it together. There were good ways to do that and bad ways to do that. I think that helped us become a working team because it wasn't just mom and dad. You know, we tell a story about one time when Sean and the boys were working together on something and it was getting on toward time to do the evening milking. Sean said, just, wrap it up. And one of the boys said, wait, Dad, wouldn't it be better if we did it this other way? And Sean said, it doesn't matter. Just wrap it up so we can go do chores. And the kid turned on Sean and said, if it doesn't matter, then this is your hobby and I'm your hobby slave. That didn't happen very often. And Sean, you see that and you realize, okay, my mistake. It does matter. And your suggestion is worth consideration. Right now, we just want to finish this work so we can do chores and get on to dinner because I'm starving. But it does matter. And we are all working here together, sort of under the authority of nature itself.
We the first 4 children, we did a lot of messy homesteading.
We were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We were but by the bottom 4, we had developed what you were talking about, systems. We understood how it works as an ecosystem. We understood that we can do this without buying in feed, that the farm, the balancing was starting to happen. All of that was very exciting. And I said to one of the oldest of the bottom 4, I said to him, how long have you been butchering? And he said, well, all my life. And I thought, well, that's true. He has been doing this all his life.
They don't know anything except...
That's right.
This is how you work with an ecosystem.
The older ones came to it and saw our messiness. But the bottom 4, and we're watching them then take what we gave them and go way beyond. Mm-hmm. That's been very exciting.
And the older 4, circling back, began to realize that things had changed since they were kids, that this wasn't just a fun family project that's messy and we don't really know what we're doing, but that we do know what we're doing. We do understand the patterns now. So I would say all of them, one way or another, have their fingers in that, or are, like the one in the military is not presently homesteading, but everybody...
He's a veterinarian.
He is a veterinarian. Everybody sees the value of home food, especially of home food production, which takes us in another direction entirely. You young people today who are fathering or mothering children have a much more urgent need to be directly involved in their food quality than our generation recognized. I think we should have been too. I think most people in our generation didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I think we know about it more now.
Yep.
Oh, it's super. I mean, I see it with all of our friends that are around our age that are having kids. It's on top of everyone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Should be.
And it's doable. And that's one of the things that I think too many people look at homesteading and think it's too much work, or it's going to be way too expensive, or as you said, they get excited about it and get into it and then get burned out because
They
it's
don't
too
have the
expensive,
pattern.
right? And an awful lot of that, I think, is not trying to make your homesteading turn into cash, but let it be
Yeah.
food, let it be warmth, let it be the things that grandma and grandpa wanted it to be, and not, trying to sell product off the farm is possible. We've done it. We found agrotourism to be our richest source of that.
Of farm
But when you start trying to turn it into cash, you often start compromising.
I think it helps to picture a homestead as something like, say you planted an apple tree. You would not expect it immediately to produce abundantly. You would expect to have to learn you'd have to plant it, take care of it, learn how to prune it, learn about its nutritional needs, invest in it and let it grow before you expected it to produce it.
And then learn how to take the apples and do something with them.
That's right.
Rather than just selling the apples, turning it into
That's
apple
right.
pie or
Right,
something
right.
else.
Apple cider.
Hey, eco farmers. This is Taylor Henry with Acres U.S.A. I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoy interviewing these folks. If you're serious about regenerative agriculture, I've got an incredible resource you need to check out, the Acres U.S.A. membership. You farm in the physical world, and you deserve a physical printed magazine to match. Since 1971, Acres U.S.A. magazine has been the leading voice in ecological agriculture, delivering the best insights from regenerative farmers, agronomists, and researchers to help you farm profitably without toxic chemicals. Our membership included physical and digital copies of the magazine each month of the year, which has always been a standard for Acres U.S.A., but we wanted to over-deliver on content. When I acquired this business, I was happy to find that we had years of audio files from presentations at our annual EcoAg conference. And guess what? They were hiding. Well, not anymore. We developed this membership portal that gives you access to the recordings from farmers like Gabe Brown, Gary Zimmer, Joel Salatin, and Mark Shepard. We also include recordings of private events. Finally, if you are like me and you like listening to content, we are now producing a membership-only podcast of each issue of the magazine, so you can consume each article while you're out in the field. To make things even sweeter, you'll get discounts on books, workshops, and events to keep expanding your knowledge. So are you ready to take your farming to the next level? Join today for a ridiculously low price at eco-farming.com or see details in the notes.
Right. We like to.
Yeah, and I think what you guys are talking about too is in something that large scale people that do it for their job, farming, could just install in their system. Because if you think about with your kids, you have worked as a team, which is pretty unique when a parent and child relationship. Where I think most of our problems with the multi-generational farming systems right now, it's always been ruled with an iron fist from above.
Yes.
And if you bring them up in something that gives them the ability to make decisions at a scale, because I think the biggest problem with people, they're doing it for a living, they don't trust the next generation, they're going to ruin something, or something terrible is going to happen. So developing these smaller tasks that you guys are actually working together as a team, and maybe it isn't the end all be all as far as the income for the family.
Right.
But it puts in a lot of lessons, and then that kid has a better chance of staying with it.
Yeah.
I think so.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
I also think, if we're making that, if we're taking a look at passing on farming to kids, you don't have to go very far back in American history to find farms in the 40 to 160 acre size. But today, what's the average size of a farm? I don't remember, but it's big.
It's well over,
1,200?
Yeah, it's well over 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, 300 I think is considered small.
Okay, right. So farms are a lot bigger now. And most of the farms that are making a lot of money are way, way, way bigger than that. And that's a scale that has to be managed from the back of a tractor. It has to be managed with computer spreadsheets. It's harder to get, it's not impossible. There are people doing it, but it is harder to get a whole family involved in that. And the consequences are more dire. So yes, the guy at the top is hanging on with both hands, and he's not usually prepared to see the younger generation come in and propose innovations.
Well, and he's afraid that an innovation is going to kill my,
train wreck.
Right. And with ours, we didn't ever, my kids are tremendous problem solvers. They look at a problem and they say, "This is solvable. I can figure out how to beat
But part
this."
of that on the small scale is when you can actually see the whole picture, right? We can see where nutrients come from, how they're captured, where they're going, how they're cycled, what are the 5 different places that I need nutrients to end up so that everybody gets fed. It's a lot easier to take it all into account as you propose innovation. So it's not as scary, and the results aren't. The results can be taken. They're good. In holistic management, we have these steps for planning, observing, recalculating, and putting a new plan in place, and that's easier to do on a small scale mixed operation. More complex, but easier.
Well, right. It's been really inspiring to talk to both of you. I really appreciate it. I think we could probably talk for a lot more time. You guys, as far as parenting and farming wise, you are a giant inspiration, not only to me, I think to a lot of people. So thank you for all the work that you guys do and the amazing information that you provide. And do you want to talk a little bit briefly? We have about 3 minutes about your first book, The Independent Farmstead, and then the next book that's coming out this year, The One Cow Revolution. Just what folks can expect in each one, and
so we were looking for the
your
book
goals are with them.
That told us how to farm the way Grandpa and Grandma used to farm, and all of that material is being passed on from parent to child. That's how you learned how to do that.
It was an oral tradition.
That's right. That's how you learned it, and that got broken. As people moved to the city, that information was not important anymore. So that didn't get passed on. And that's what we had been looking for. We never found that book. So we wrote the book. And that's what the Independent Farmstead is an attempt to do, is to give you the information, give the reader the information to get started on a holistic ecosystem farm, how Grandma and Grandpa used to do this, how to make it work. So that's what that farm was. That's what that book is about. And then people started writing us emails. We love to get emails from people. We like to help people. And we would be writing long emails back. And so we turned those into small booklets called the field guides. We were looking for somebody that would produce or publish these field guides. And we had different places that were interested in different aspects of it. But finally, we went back to our original publisher, and they were interested in making smaller, not as small as booklets, but books that are a deep dive into the other areas of the farming that we do. So the first one is on the dairy cow. And that will be out in November.
Tentative title, One Cow Revolution.
And they want us to do a whole series of books on rotational grazing for the homestead, and on what do you do with all that milk, and how do you feed the farm from the farm. And so we are in the process of writing a whole series of these, which are a deep dive into what we give an overview of in the Independent Farmstead.
And One Cow Revolution is our attempt to be at the elbow of the person who is just getting into holistic dairy cow management. So family cow, one cow to, small herd, to be at their elbow for those first couple of years as they're navigating things like cow health and calving and cow fertility and grass management and cow nutrition. We've attempted to, pack all of the questions that we had that people have asked us since then into sort of a step-by-step.
And One Cow Revolution is our website, and you can email us from there. You can also see lots of videos. We don't video ourselves. We would be terrible at it, but people do video us. And so we're on the Warrior Poet Society doing a homestead, Help Your Homestead. We're on
Abundance Plus.
Abundance Plus. We're on
Living Web,
School of Traditional Skills. There's lots of
Homesteaders
things.
of America.
There's lots of things out there to see what we do and how we do it. So happy to help.
That's awesome.
And we're at a lot of conferences. So
and we don't actually monetize any of this stuff online. We don't have, so the only ways that the only things that we have to sell are 2 books, and so our one ad is that those 2 books exist.
Yep, and we'll have both. We have the Independent Farmstead on our site now, and we'll have the other one as soon as it comes out. So thank you very much for joining us. Excited to talk to you guys more in the future, and make sure to reach out to Sean and Beth if you have any questions.
It was a real pleasure, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Acres U.S.A. podcast, a podcast production of Acres U.S.A. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and other popular podcast platforms. Acres U.S.A. is North America's oldest publisher on production-scale organic and regenerative farming. For more than 50 years, our mission has been to help farmers, ranchers, and market gardeners grow food profitably, regeneratively, and with nature in mind. Find our books and other Acres USA media and learn about Acres USA events at acresusa.com. Read our online magazine at members.acresusa.com, and we'd like to thank Acres USA staff for their contributions to producing this podcast. This episode was edited and engineered by Weston Larson of Acres USA. We're grateful to our guests for taking the time to talk with us about their experiences.